see everybody come out here tonight. This is actually the first budget town hall that is being hosted here in San Francisco, right here in community. So give yourselves a hand for showing up and being the first. I am hosting tonight Supervisor of District 10, Shamann Walton, along with our budget chair on the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Connie Chan. And you are going to hear a lot more from her in a minute as we get started, but really just want you to know what today's meeting is going to be about. So we're going to go over the budget process, talk about the steps along the way of how we form the budget here in San Francisco, talk a little bit about our priorities. There'll also be a survey that you all can hit the link on that we'll put up, that you can scan and hit the link to give further input if you don't get a chance to either speak tonight or if you have some ideas and some thoughts that you are not able to get out. But I do just want to welcome everybody here to the Southeast Community Center. I know a lot of you have been here before, but this amazing building is in place as part of the mitigation for us to have to endure the sewage plant here in the southeast sector of San Francisco. And this replaces the other site that we had in 1800 Oakdale. And so this site is a little bit over a year now. It's highly sought after, but if you haven't had a chance to spend time here, make sure you get a chance to walk around, see the grounds, and just see the amazing space that we have right here in community. I do want to just get a feel for who is in the room so we can kind of know as we shape the conversation. So how many people here who are representing community-based organizations? How many people here who are District 10 residents, not necessarily represent organizations? And you can be both, you can raise your hand for it. How many people here work for the city? We want to thank our city partners for being here, of course, and showing up for tonight's budget forum. But we're really not going to do a whole bunch of talking on the front end. We really want to hear from all of you and allow you that space and time. When we get to the point to have a question and answer period, we'll let you know what we're going to do. We're basically going to walk around to each person with the microphone as we see who wants to speak and bring the microphone over to you so you can ask your questions, and then Supervisor Chan and I will tag team to get you the responses that you're looking for. So with that said, I also want to say we know that there have been RFP announcements that have been made over the past week, and of course we want to hear from our CBO partners and learn about what their issues and concerns are. But we will also have more time and more forums and more conversations because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk about their priorities, what they want to see with the city budget as we move forward for this fiscal year. So with that said, I'm going to bring up our budget chair, Supervisor Connie Chan.
Thank you, Supervisor Walton. Good evening, District 10, and it's good to be with all of you here today. You have a supervisor that really cares about you, and not only that, he fights for you and advocates for you. I think that what makes District 10 the first district that have this budget town hall, because we understand that in order for us to, as elected officials and elected leaders, to fulfill the promises to serve our community, resources at the end of the day really is key. Resources, funding, programming, all the things that a community needs to thrive, and right now we'll also recover from the pandemic. So we're going to start really quick, and I'm just going to walk you through the process, because again, like Supervisor Walton said, we really want to leave time for questions and answer and conversation. We often hear that the city has a budget of $14 billion, and it's true that we do. And right now it's really the $14.6 billion, and out of which $7.8 billion is what we call enterprise departments. That is like SMFTA, port, and airport. And these are really typically city departments that already have, they are actually what they have, rate payers. So their spending, both in revenue and their spending, are really set and have heavily restricted by both the federal law and state government. Now, is the $6.8 billion of general fund is really what we're trying to talk about here today, and that is for public services like health, police, and fire, and public works. But I also want to talk a little bit about what we can do on the Board of Supervisors. And first, so you understand our role here with you today, is that we are, oftentimes we hear from our constituents, and they're mandating us, as they should, to do certain things with city departments, and we want to say that we can influence and we can advocate for you, but what we cannot do, though, is to interfere. We do not interfere with personnel decisions. We do not interfere with specific contracts. We do go up and down on contract, but we do not set the terms and conditions of contract. So I just, again, want to be very specific about that. And then the next is to talk about, so what do we really look at as for supervisors? In fact, we really only look at contracts and spending that is $10 million or more. That's really the only time when any contract comes to us for approval. We want to talk a little bit about supplemental and appropriation, which you probably have heard about. Like sometimes the board supervisor can allocate money and can, in the middle of the budget year to say something that needs to be more, and oftentimes city departments will come to us and say, for example, we have staffing overtime that we now need your approval to allow us to spend on that overtime. That's usually when they come to us for approval. But board supervisors have limited power, again, with supplemental. Because it all depends on if the money is actually there, and even when we do have supplemental or appropriate certain funding, it's really on the administration and city departments. They have to decide if they're going to set out the RFP or if they're going to spend on certain programming. So we may be able to appropriate that money, but if that money gets out the door, so to speak, out of City Hall, we have no way to mandate that and to dictate that. So here, the next is really the critical. Today, I really hope that we take the time to digest this timeline, because here we are in April. Now, I just want to walk all of us through what typically happens is what you're seeing on the screen. But what happened last year was unusual. What happened last year is that we had a budget. We determined a budget. We signed a budget in July. But many of you, I think if you are working with the city, you may already know that in mid-year, which is December last year, the mayor has proposed what she called a mid-year budget cut. It means 3% across the board. So if you have a grant that was waiting for an RFP, that RFP probably didn't come because it was part of the mid-year budget cut. Sorry, RFP as request for proposal. I just want to make sure I am not confusing. Now here we are in 2024. We are in the place where now the mayor and city departments are now really deciding their budget, which is the reason why I think some of you have heard about budget reduction, because now they're putting the budget together. With that process, that is when the mayor is going to propose her budget in June. And that's typically when we are going to know what is being cut, what is being allocated for funding. So I think the last one is really very specific about not just our budget, but it's also the state government budget. This year we know that the state government, with the revised budget in May, that they now have reduced their budget deficit to $17 billion from $38 billion from December. It's not a good news for us as a city government because we are dependent on them for many of our funding. So if they start cutting, it may also mean we're going to get reduced state funding, and most often that whatever programming that we have, we may be leveraging for state funding. So if they cut us, then it may also mean a reduction in the local funding. It's a very difficult time. The city and county of San Francisco in itself, this fiscal year, we're facing $235 million of budget deficit. How are we going to close that? I think that's a question really for all of us here today, and I'm glad that we're starting in District 10, because I think that we all have said this time and time again, if the city's budget is our collective value of who we are as a city, and I think this is a moment that we speak up about what our needs and what is it that we want to demand our City Hall deliver for us, for all of us. You have a great supervisor here. I'm going to hand this back to him. He's going to talk to you a little bit about what specifically District 10's priorities are and what can we do, what can you do to come to City Hall and make your demands. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chan. I think I can talk on here. So, first of all, I hope we all heard the common theme about this year's budget, and that is we have a deficit that we are facing for this fiscal year, and we also have a deficit that we are facing for the next fiscal year. This is an unusual time, as Chair Chan explained, because we did have to suffer from mid-year budget cuts. I don't think we've been in that position as a city since 2008, when I actually worked for the city at the time. We had to deliver some messages to some of you in this room about mid-year cuts. So having mid-year reductions, and the mayor asked for additional 10% for her city departments to present as she gets ready to decide what budget she's going to put forth, and an additional 3% contingency. So we are facing some reductions that are going to affect us, and that's why meetings like this and forums like this are very important. We need to hear directly from you what is important to you, the things that we need to make sure we do fund so that the city can function, so that we're able to maintain the safety net. So just so you know, for our priorities as District 10, what we will be fighting for, specifically for this fiscal year, is maintaining critical services, addressing affordability, decreasing inequities, safety, and services for unhoused and members of the community with mental health concerns. So those are what we're going to be focused on. There are a lot of new great ideas, a lot of innovative ideas that are out there. There are a lot of programs that people want to receive funding for that are most certainly programs that are going to lead to positive results for community. But this is going to be a budget year where we're trying to maintain the safety net that we have in place right now. So we're really going to be fighting to make sure that we can keep the services and preserve the services that we have first before we're able to do anything on top of that, just because of where we are with the budget. So with that said, and also I didn't do this and I apologize, but I want to also acknowledge Francis Shea with Supervisor Connie Chan's office. Of course, the District 10 Dream Team, Lindsay, Natalie, Tracy, and Percy, Annetta, and then again, just give all of yourselves a hand for being here in community. It's good to see everybody together. So we are going to ask that if you want to speak, that you state your name and who you represent or what organization you may represent. You will have a minute to say whatever you want to say or ask a question, and just be mindful that we have a lot of people who want to speak that have something to say. So let's make sure we try to keep the timeline to a minute so we can hear from everybody. Again, we do have the barcode up there that you can scan and give additional feedback and information about concerns, issues around the budget, particularly if you don't get to have a chance to address something that you wanted to in this forum, or if you have information that you may forget for later, you can always type it into the barcode. I'm going to walk around with the microphone and then get questions and then or comments, and then we'll answer questions on our end as well. So I'm going to start here with Ms. Karen.
So I have way more than a minute, but I'm going to do this one because I think it is most vital. And that is, it seems that City Hall is taking our agency's funding and forcing us to move our budgets to the other side of the city, rather than acknowledging that we're the experts out here and we should be leading the services that are going out here. This is a pattern that I see going on with lots of folks. And like I said, I have a lot more, but specifically, we need to be sure that when we get a grant, we're going to be able to do the whole program, and we're not going to be told, well, you can finish your program if you subcontract across the city.
So I heard a couple of things there, and one, I hope you have noticed my focus since I've been on the Board of Supervisors is to make sure that our organizations that are indigenous community, our organizations that represent community are the ones that actually receive the resources to do the work. We will continue to do that and continue to be mindful of that. We're also mindful that our CBO partners in particular do a lot of work for the city. And a good chunk of the time, you're not really fully provided with the resources that it costs to maintain and provide the programmatic outcomes that you're asked to do. And that is also understandable. And a lot of times, it's because we're working with the resources that we have in play. But of course, we are going to fight to make sure that we do everything we can so that that is not the case. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Chair Chan.
Absolutely. I think what we looking forward to seeing that community-based organizations is doing this year is, I'm going to give an example. For example, food security programming, we know that the food cost has increased. We know it's significant inflation. So when in the past you say, with this dollar amount, I can service 50 seniors for meals, it's not true anymore. You're going to probably at 40 or even less servicing those seniors, or the number of seniors that you can service with the same dollar amount. I think this is a moment that collectively, I really want to urge all the CBOs to say we need to really calculate in the cost of doing business and also where the inflation is and the cost of all of that in your grant agreement, so that I want to say we right size both the service goal as well as the dollar goal. And I think that it's better to say that up front and collectively when you respond to an RFP. I know that at times that we, in a scarcity mentality, that we just wanted to get the dollars and sort of just we're going to promise, we're going to do everything, but when in reality is you shortchange yourself, both in servicing the community, because you're not going to get to be able to serve as many people as you really wanted to, because that money just not there for you. And I think then eventually you're in a very compromising space. We don't want you to do that. We want you to be able to say, let's do that cost up front. So I really urge you to do that math, so to speak, right now, and then push back on the RFP and making city departments be realistic about cost.
My name is Resna, Associate Director of Workforce Reentry with Bay Area Community Resources, and I stand here in solidarity of being able to speak the importance of youth leadership, right? I know our champions came up, and I really just want to uplift the resilience of community work when we're thinking about our young people. I stand before you as one of the many community-based organizations who are representing the power and the effectiveness of a youth-led model that prioritizes youth leadership, youth development, and youth voice as the forefront in decision-making, as well as fostering empowerment, as well as a sense of belonging, right? Because the youth are our futures, as you've heard in our testimonies with our champions, but there are so many more of our youth who are not here today whose voices also matter, right? From other organizations who are also valued, who also do the work in D10. And so, when I'm echoing my champions' emotions, right, in response to learning about the RFP budget cuts, devastates me. Not only to know that youth programs, not just Hope SF champions, let me be clear, it's also as well as all of the youth-centered programs who are doing the work here, who are making a difference, who is influencing change in broken homes and broken neighborhoods that may not have the opportunity. And it's really about making sure for our young people, will they have a future because of not being invested in? That's what we found out this week. And I know that when we're thinking about it, and I had a question, I promise, my 2 questions. I got 2 questions, because I had to write it down. When I think about the question I've been thinking about and sitting on, my questions are, where are the city's investments when we're thinking about Hope SF? And also, when we're thinking about our young people who stand in the balances of these decisions as they are, and I want to make a simple fact. This is a fact that they are our future leaders, our future faces when it comes to nonprofit, workforce, education, city officials, and overall the population of San Francisco that is to come. So thank you for your time.
I can definitely speak to OPSF being the one who made sure that the resources were available in the first place for our OPSF champions. Of course, I will continue to be advocating with all the reductions that we receive to make sure that we can preserve and restore services that we have been doing for the last couple of years. So we will be fighting to make that happen, but the investment in OPSF, aside from just our OPSF champions, providing funding for workforce at all of our OPS sites, making sure folks can get trained, go to work on the projects right in their own community, making sure that community benefits agreements are achieved as we do the work. So there's a lot of work we do with and for OPSF communities that we're definitely going to continue and most certainly fight for young people to be able to take leadership roles and continue to be resilient in the community is something that is important and a priority to us as well.
Well, I would say you're the inspiration and I'm just the technical aspect of this process. And for those who are your organizations that you're being cut, my suggestion is that let's send in an email to District 10 with the organizations that you belong to, the dollar amount that you're being cut, and what the programming that was cut. And those are very specific information that is really going to help me as your budget chair to really start thinking about how much money exactly we're talking about that is being reduced. Of course, it will be really helpful to say you're also an organization in District 10, so then again, we know that the population that you serve and very specific about the dollar amount, those are the things that I would really appreciate. It's also the reason why we're starting this early instead of waiting until June, that you're not too sure where you're going to submit this information and someone can even see it at 3 o'clock in the morning. We want to see it now.
And you can also cheat and just put that information in the survey link as well.
Hi, my name is Anna. I work at APAC, which is located at Visitation Valley. Senior is one of the major groups that we serve, and so I'm just here today to advocate for fundings to maintain those services that we provide to the community, which includes translation and social services and applying for plug benefits as well in 3 different languages. Well, 4 if you count English, Cantonese, Mandarin, and Spanish. And I'm also here today to help another group, BDCU, advocate for their fundings as well. And they are a diversity group who advocates in safety and interracial understanding. Thank you.
All right, this is a little nerve-wracking, so very impressed with everybody giving such great comments. Thank you, Supervisor Walton and Chan, for hosting this forum. My name is Barb Tassa. I'm a D10 resident here in Bayview, so I'm sharing my comments from my personal perspective. There are lots of challenges in Bayview and D10, and that there are a lot of programs with lots of administrative costs. So as a resident here with young kids, I would like to advocate for 3 main things. First, I'd like to advocate for SF Park and Rec investments in our community centers that are used by youth, seniors, and everybody really that lives here. Our rec centers could be open 7 days a week. We have these amazing facilities. Why don't they have longer hours? We talk about youth and all the people that live here. Like, we have this facility and the others. They should be maxed out for their capacity. So those hubs can be filled with activity, programs, and life. They're already here. Second, I'd like to advocate for building housing. It was brought up before, Dog Patch is coming up really nicely, but we need to build housing here as well, at all levels. And so I asked the city to look at the enormous soft costs that are associated with these projects and how can those projects be made more feasible. More residential units, especially around the 3rd Street corridor, means more life, more money, and that's going to go to the local businesses and the tax base. So things like grocery stores can exist because they will have the foot traffic. And last, third, I'd like to advocate for safety, public safety, street safety, transit safety. As an example, I ride my bike a lot here. Speeds on 3rd Street are pretty crazy. It's a racetrack for some drivers. And there also is a lot of car dependency in our neighborhood. So we need to really think about how we can make it feasible and safe to get around D10 so that we can reduce the reliance on multiple cars. So I don't know what that solution looks like, but I know we can do it. And then just lastly to the folks here, I've heard a lot of concerns about youth programs, and I would just also, somebody that does not work for the government, I would also like to maybe just say there's also the private sector that are encouraging youth to come in and get opportunities. We live in San Francisco, and this is actually the world's most active tech hub. That's what brought me here in 2012. There are all kinds of interesting opportunities for people of all sorts of backgrounds and capabilities. So it's not just public sector or CBOs, there are so many other amazing opportunities. If you go to a dog patch, which is D10, Y Combinator is the world's largest startup ecosystem that's set up here in just a mile up. And they literally create the craziest, amazing, biggest world companies. So anyways, thank you so much, and if I can help anybody with the private sector, please come and talk to me. I'm happy to make introductions and help people because we all live here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My Lord and Lady, I have to acknowledge my sister Anna from the nation of Thoma in the house. Talofa, from the nation of Samoa. I just want to get up here. It's kind of hard because, for me, this is family, right? This is my neighborhood. If you don't know, 70% of Pacific Islanders, or the people of La Bassa and San Francisco, live in low-income housing. A lot of us, we grew up next to each other, so we know the pain and we know how it is to be left out. We know how it is not to have a voice. So for me, it's more of a comment. It's just more of a keeping folks aware that we do also exist here. And I really appreciate the supervisors that are here because it wasn't until recently, when I say recently, us as a community, my sister Patsy, Dr. Patsy Tito touched on this earlier, we're finally starting to be recognized and notice that we do exist in the city, right? A lot of people think we're just happy and it's all good. No, we got a plethora of disparities, trust me. When you're talking about over 73% of us live in housing, we just broke 1% of enrollment in college. Really? Right? We have, our population in the city is less than 10,000, but we're in the top 5 in almost every negative category there is. So again, for me, I don't really want to sit here and talk about that because I know I'm preaching amongst, I'm over here in the choir. We all have issues. Right? Our brothers and sisters here in the neighborhood, like I said, we all grew up around. We know what time it is when it comes to our community. When I say our community, I'm talking about our family here. All the way from Patrol Hill, to Sunnydale, to Delmarod, Hunters Point. Trust me, we all share the same pain, so we know how it is to always be left out. The city, I'm looking at the budget, almost $15 billion. We got less than 1 million people. Really? And we still have an issue? Come on, man. $15 billion with less than 1 million people, and we have an issue to make sure that all these services that are important that's in this room, to make sure that everybody in this city has a good quality of life, right? Got to give my young brother right here, Shamann Walton. No, for real life. Shamann is the real deal. Sister Connie, I remember Sister Connie coming up. The real deal. Why? It's because they do give folks like the Pacific Islander community and other smaller communities that don't have the representation nor the voices. They do look out for us. And for me, that goes a long way. Because sometimes, right, the worst feeling is to not be invited in the party, but yet you're part of the community. And that's how it's always been for us. Everybody's at the table eating when it's time to divvy up, right? And we're standing on the sidewalk like, wow. I wonder what it'll look like if we could ever have a helping hand to help ourselves. But for me, I just want to, again, I know the pain that's in this room because we're not the only community, but I really wanted to come up here because I am amongst family and this is my community. And I wanted you guys to know that we do exist and that we do have a voice and that we are out here trying to do the best we can to uplift ourselves with the support from our supervisors. And I just, for me, God bless each and every one of you that's out here helping our young people, out here uplifting our community. Keep the faith, keep your prayers up. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Shamann Hunter. I'm a native San Franciscan, but I consider myself, I also am a native Potrero Hillian. I thank Shamann that you're doing this today and that you asked for suggestions. In the last 2 weeks, I've had conversations with Shamann more times in the last 2 weeks based on circumstances that are happening in Potrero Hill than I have in a whole year. And I have him as a personal contact in my phone. Because Potrero Hill continues to suffer through all these wonderful things, one of the most richest neighborhoods in the city. We are suffering. We are suffering. We have this thing called the Hope SF. I consider the hopeless SF because there are people taking millions of dollars, making millions of dollars, making billions of dollars, and the residents are suffering. I am suffering. So I say, let's not just talk about cuts for young people and old people. What about just all of us, right? Because until I'm dead, I'm still here. And I expect to be treated fairly and equitable. I like the fact that you had decreasing inequities, community neighborhood safety, and services for the unhoused. I'll share with you on April 2nd that there's 55 units on one side of Potrero Hill Public Housing that are leased residents. But there are more unhoused people living on Potrero Hill Public Housing today than it is actually leased people, officially. And we don't have a tenant association. There are departments that give money to make sure they have some tenant representation, and they continue to collect money, but that is not happening. We have one organization, and I would say YCD, who has actually does funding for workforce, and there's no one else that shows up to table, but there's millions of dollars saying they're helping people get jobs. We have a resident in the room that lives directly across the street from a project, but the contractor will not hire her. And they saying, oh, they have people hired from the community. There is a problem. We don't have any watchdogs. You heard Maika say that she hasn't been paid in 3 to 4 months, but they tell us CBOs we gotta have all our documentation in by the 5th of the month, and we still wait. I didn't go after that youth money because I don't even want government money. I thought about this yesterday. Thank you, sister, wherever you at. I'm gonna come get your phone number because we didn't talk. But so I just need us to be very clear. So my charge is to make sure the policies and the practices that y'all have in place are working. Yes, we cut. I don't know who was the deliberators to make sure people didn't get money on Monday, but what the hell is it that we deliberated? Who are the deliberators? Because I don't think they actually looked at that. Again, if we're going to do contracts and all that, let's build in a system where we can also do the watchdog watches the watchdog. Because there's a problem. It's broken. And my last comment is that Alejandra and Jose, I don't know about what happened in June 30th, but Shamann Hunter's commitment to you is that you will have employment July. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having this forum, and it's great to be a part of it and hear of all of the needs in the community. Well, it's not great, but it's hard, and I'm sorry about that. I have a comment about what I think is low-hanging fruit to get at equity, to get at jobs, to get at all of these things, and that is safety. I'm working on Safer Illinois, which is to put a very safe, protected bike lane on Illinois Street, and I'd like to see that happen. It's only the cost of paint, and it will get people to 3rd Street. It will get people to the beautiful new parks at Mission Rock, China Basin. It will get people down to the India Basin Shoreline Park. It will connect 6 miles of beautiful parks, of car-free, safe, protected bikeways. And I'd like to see the city actually make a commitment to this neighborhood to actually keep people safe. We've seen Vision Zero failing in the city. People continue to get killed. And we know that 3rd Street is a high injury network. Let's work for the low-hanging fruit. Let's make the spaces safe for the community and get people to jobs in the city, to parks for recreation, and all over this place. So I'd love people to join me to support Safer Illinois and Shamann Walton also. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, supervisors, for continuing to make sure that you guys are creating a space to hear us out. I know that doesn't happen very often, especially in the political world. A lot of times I criticize and talk the truth, which I say, that's just another dog pony show. I'm not going on there. But I know, like, coming to something that you guys create, that you guys will take our concerns and continue to advocate. I big witness to that. My name is Gaynor Ansiatana. I'm a born and raised native of San Francisco, so when people say who I'm representing, that's who I'm representing. At the end of the day, a lot of us, and something, Supervisor Walton had mentioned about 2008, and I remember when cuts came, and something that I'm always tired of. I'm tired right now coming up here. I don't even know why I came up here. But I'm tired of when cuts come, and I know what happens, that it always cuts us. That are the most impacted, the most, struggling, the most, with the highest of disparities. It's like I don't see top-heavy cuts, and it's always been an issue with me ever since I was young. 2008, we faced where many of these agencies, a lot of them I see here today still, my brothers and sisters, fighting, all across the city for $12 million, cutting out case management. But how else are we going to help and support our communities? A lot of times the city takes credit for a lot of the work that we do. And that tires me. I'm not coming at you guys at all because I know this is the first body in all the years that I've seen that have supported us and invested in us. And when you guys invested in us, you've seen what our community was able to do, even with the lack of resources. We're serving hundreds of thousands of people. When we came to you and said our Pacific Islanders are down to 3,589 in population. We are now, when you guys invested, thank you, Supervisor Shamann, Supervisor Chan, we now have close to 9,000 people. And this is in 1 year. And we've served hundreds of thousands, and we never turned away our brothers and sisters, because like Uncle John said, we know how it feels. We know how it feels. We leverage. We've worked together with our Black brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters. And this is the first time I can say as a Native, we work stronger in solidarity. I remember people being cutthroat when that cut happened with the $12 million. You're not going to do that to us again. We're going to continue to stand together and come and say, you know what? Either invest in us or burn the city down. Because at the end of the day, the only ones that are getting richer are the richer, and the ones that are poorer are continuing to be poor and being cut. So I ask you to take that to the mayor's office. You can tell her I said it.